Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to ask Mr. Doyle and Mr. Ladinsky to follow up kind of on my statement. First of all, thank you for your willingness to serve in this capacity. Obviously, one of the big things that we face is competition. We have the Panama Canal expansion. We have lots of infrastructure improvement being made in the northern, in Canada. And so since the harbor maintenance tax has been in place, we have used that money for dredging and various things, but the majority of the money goes unspent. In fact, in 2011, there was a surplus of $6.3 billion. So my question is, as we see the Canadian rail system make improvements, as we see these Panama Canal improvements, all of the competition for improving freight lines means that we have to continue to be competitive on the U.S. side. So how do you think that ports can be more competitive in improving their infrastructure using the harbor maintenance tax or making some changes to it that would help us continue to be competitive in the future?
Well, as the Senator mentioned, ports are one of the most competitive systems in our country, and competition between U.S. ports is vicious. When you cross international borders, however, it adds another dimension to this issue, and that's why the Commission was voted 5-0 to take up the issue of Prince Rupert and the Canadian diversion that's taking place there. The Commission has been criticized for doing that, but we're moving full speed ahead. We've received nearly 100 comments of detailed responses. We hope to finish the study by end of spring, publish it early in the summer. But the Senator also has put her finger on one of the key issues, and that is the use of the harbor maintenance tax, particularly as it could support infrastructure and intermodal facilities. A lot of people we are finding are using the Canadian alternative because they complain of port delays and complain of ancient infrastructure in our ports. That's why a bill like, I think the committee has S-371 before it, to fund these ports, use some of that harbor maintenance fund to help our ports streamline their handling of the cargo, and that will go a long way in the competitive realm.
Thank you. Mr. Doyle, did you want to comment on that?
If confirmed, to the extent that the FMC can provide objective facts and data with respect to the ports, one thing I would point out is that I believe that there's a bill, H.R. 104, which has strong bipartisan support in the House, and that's for the proper use of the harbor maintenance fund, using the harbor maintenance fund for its intended purpose. And you know, if that were to get enacted into law, to the extent that the Federal Maritime Commission could help out and provide objective facts and have some role in it, I would be bound by that law.
Well, I think the issue is that we have an existing fund that's being underutilized, and we have incredible competition coming at us. And so the question is, will you two lead the charge in looking at ways to maintain the competitiveness of our ports and ways to innovate? Because if we don't, I guarantee you the infrastructure investment. I'll give you a different example. So the Port of Vancouver has the second largest grain elevator in the world there. And I asked them, why do we have the second largest grain elevator in the world? And they said, because the rising middle class in Asia wants to eat beef, and if they want to eat beef, they need our grain. Well, that's a positive story for us. Now, the dredging that was done there obviously allowed us to get larger ships in. But there's other examples of where if we're just approaching it from a dredging perspective, then we're only looking at one piece of the equation. That is not the number 1 or 2 ports in our state. It was a very important port. But all of these things, we have to realize with the global economy around the world, lots of other nations are going to cut down their transportation time. And then somebody's going to make a decision as it relates to the Asian market based on that. So the question is, are we going to innovate and continue to move forward?
Well, the Senator, again, is correct, and that's why the Commission has taken a leadership position in this matter. 2 containers leave Shanghai, China, headed for the United States for Akron, Ohio. One comes through Prince Rupert, Canada, and pays no harbor maintenance tax because it crosses the border in Chicago or Great Falls, Minnesota. The other container comes through Seattle or Oakland and pays harbor maintenance tax. So in the competitive world, again, of shipping, shippers know cost, and this puts our country at a disadvantage. That's why we're taking a very strong look at this, and we'll come to you with recommendations in that area.
Thank you, Mr. Ladinsky. And so, Mr. Doyle, I detect a hesitancy on your part on this issue.
I don't have the benefit of seeing all the data that the Federal Maritime Commission has gathered at this point. But I would like to, stay with the statement on Mr. Laninsky. When the report comes out at the end of the summer, we can take a strong look at what is going on between the competitiveness and whether or not that harbor maintenance tax from in the United States side, as opposed to Prince Rupert, is a significant problem.
Well, I think just as in the private sector, whether you're Boeing or Microsoft or Starbucks, you have to continue to innovate to stay competitive. On our government side, we have to do the same thing. We have to have modernization if we're going to stay competitive in these markets. So I thank the chairman and I thank the witnesses.